Welcome to the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast, brought to you by Milk Bottle Labs, one of the world's top-rated accredited Shopify experts. Our founder, Keith Matthews, interviews Shopify folk to share as many Shopify tips and tricks as possible. This podcast is kindly supported by our two favorite Shopify tools we install in every store, Rewind.io and Klaviyo. Rewind is the leading backup solution for Shopify stores. Let's just say it's the cheapest insurance policy you'll ever get for your Shopify store, protecting all of your valuable data. And Klaviyo is our preferred automated email solution and is trusted by over 65,000 brands worldwide. Keep listening. We have some special offers for our podcast fans. Now over to your host, Keith Matthews.
Hey folks, welcome back. For episode 59, I'm delighted to be joined by Stephen Jiang from Fervor Hue, which is a Cork-based home interior brand built across the Shopify platform. He is a Shopify POS in-store, an online retail store is powered by Shopify, and Shopify is also powering its trade store. So Fervor Hue is solely powered by Shopify. Originally from China, Stephen arrived in Ireland at aged 14 and has built a wonderful brand down in County Cork. Stephen, how are you?
Not so bad, Keith. Thank you for having me on.
Good. You drove up?
I did, yeah. Drove up and it was a great drive. There's no traffic, so
Good.
Just great.
In true Irish style, Stephen, was the traffic busy?
No, it was actually not too bad at all. And generally, the road from Cork to Dublin is actually is pretty good. I just listen plenty of podcasts that keep me entertained.
Very good. Well, look, for our listeners, we record this face-to-face in Dublin in a studio in Dundrum Shopping Centre. So thanks very much for taking the time to drive up.
No problem.
It's quite a journey. Stephen, you are talking to me because congratulations, you were one of the winners of the recent competition with Virgin Media.
Yes.
And as part of that, we built you out a trade store on Shopify. Let's just go back to the start, okay? A Chinese man running a very successful business on Shopify in County Cork. How did you end up in Cork?
How did I end up in Cork? Yes, this is, I suppose, a 22 years question. So I suppose I moved over here in Ireland when I was 14 years old and on my own, actually, believe it or not. So my parents want to send me to overseas to study English. And at the time, Ireland was one of the countries looking for, I suppose, taking on Chinese students. So that's how I landed in Cork, really. And then I suppose it's just from there I suppose the plan was always kind of going back to China after certain period of time, maybe get a degree, etc., and moving back home. But and I suppose like any good story, I met my girlfriend, but now my wife at the time, and then I decided to stay in Ireland.
So was that hard to come over so far away at 14 years of age? Did you have any relations that had done the same journey ahead of you? No.
Actually, my father had a few friends living in Australia at the time, but nobody in Ireland. Actually, funny story, Keith, was when my father came to me in our house and said to me, look, do you want to go to London or Ireland? And my question to my dad was,
are you serious?
Yeah, and this is in 1999, Keith, right? So there was no Google, right? And so we couldn't really Google it. And my father said, his reaction is, I don't know. And so two of us actually gone back to find a map and try to find Ireland. But yeah, there you go. I think the thinking behind there, my father kind of pushed me more coming over to Ireland was because it's a smaller Chinese community in Ireland. So you kind of have to force yourself immerse into the culture, the language, so you learn faster.
Is that a common thing within Chinese culture? Are you being encouraged to leave, obviously to learn English, which is common language across the world, but are you encouraged to leave because there's a better opportunity, or was it purely from an educational point of view?
It was purely from education point of view, but there was what I would call it is probably a trend at the time in around 99. I think it probably kicked off around 95. Up until then, there was a culture change. There's a lot of because I was only child, and a lot of the parents put all their energy and effort into one child, and obviously they want the best for their child. And so there was a thing there in China with a fashion, almost a culture change thing. A lot of parents are sending their kids, if they can afford it, sending their kids overseas to study and hoping that, they would come back with, number one, English language. Number two, when maybe with some degree or experience, that you come back into a Chinese city that with something different to offer.
Yes.
Than compared to just get a normal Chinese degree in a Chinese university, So that was thinking behind it.
So there's an element of ambition, and then there's also an element of foresightedness, looking into the future, saying, hold on a second, if Stephen can get a better opportunity abroad and some experience, if he does come back, he can bring something back.
Exactly.
Now, how did you react when you got here first? I mean, 14-year-old, effectively on your own. Did you have any support locally in Cork at the time?
To be fair, I actually did. It wasn't too bad, right? Because I suppose in my year one I went into a language school, right? Because this is me, 14 now. I actually didn't have a word of English, right? So I had to learn everything from scratch, really. And I suppose that was the whole purpose of the trip, really.
Yeah.
And so I was living with an Irish family, which, we are still in contact today. So which is great because they were very good to me. And I lived with them for a year, and there was a great support. So like it was a funny story, Keith, because many people ask me, is like, what is the first reaction or culture shock, all that kind of stuff. Well, I'll tell you one story was, I remember one day, it was every Sunday, we have our what they call it, you have your tea.
Yes.
Right. And so I didn't know what that was. So like my first Sunday, I think my host family was asking me, say, would you like tea? And I was like, sure. In my head, a tea is like, leaves, dry leaves, and brew in a hot pot.
Proper Chinese tea.
A hot pot of water,
not
and
lions in a bag.
And then when she said, "Do you want tea?" I said, "Sure, yeah, of course, yeah." And then I went into the kitchen and she said, "Here's your tea." And I'm looking at it. Is literally, I was kind of looking at the plate. Going, why there's two sausage of black pudding? I was like, I thought we were having tea.
As you say that, Peter, the producer, is laughing through the window there. Yeah, that's a pretty good reflection of two completely opposing cultures.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like another actually question people ask me a lot is, are the Chinese food here the same as China? And my answer was like, I didn't know what chicken Maryland was until I worked at a Chinese restaurant in Cork.
Very good. And in that time, in your teenage years, did you have the opportunity to get back to China?
I did. Yeah. I after 6 months, I went back to China for a visit. And then I tried to go back like once a year. But there was a period of time I didn't go back for, I said, about almost 3 years. And I suppose now is probably the second longest time I haven't been to China because of COVID.
Yeah.
I generally try to go back China.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, Fervor Hue gives you an opportunity to go back, doesn't it?
Well, that's the very reason I set up Fervor Hue, really, Keith. Because, for many years, people ask me why I set up a Fervor Hue. And I was kind of, I kind of explained to people for very selfish reasons, really, because I know, because I always worked. I worked since I was about 15. I work and then. So
just before you go to Fervor Hue, because it's fascinating what you've done. Okay.
Yeah.
In between Fervor Hue and school, you stayed in Ireland and you stayed in Cork and you continued to work. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I suppose I always worked. I worked since the age I was about 14, really, and even through college, I was working full time, right? And then after college, I started working in multinational companies, and I suppose I was trained as accountant, etc. Working in finance department, etc. And then over time, I feel like I suppose as my life progressed, and I was getting married with my Cork girlfriend, and then my parents are living in China, right? And I just thinking that, this is not going to be. I don't think that my wife wants to move to China or my parents want to move to Ireland, and so I just have to think a way of that I can combine the two worlds.
Connect the two.
Yeah, connect the two. And I was working in a multinational company, and I suppose, as you know, Keith, you get your standard 23 days or 21 days of holidays a year. Sure, a trip to China would take that up,
Yeah. So explain to the listeners exactly then the connection between China and Fervor Hue.
Yeah. So I suppose after I worked in the multinational for a while, and then myself and my wife decided we'd go traveling for a bit. I would try to live in many different countries. And then we said, and eventually we did decide to kind of settle back down into Cork in Ireland. And then I was looking at it saying, look, now is the time for us to actually do something on my own terms. So I decided to take a month off myself and gone back to China myself. So that's, I think, the success we have today is very much down to that 1 month I spent in China. Because in that month, I was able to meet, over 100 manufacturers. And I was able to set up that kind of relationship and spend that time in China.
Now, was that at something like the Canton Fair, or was that based on your local knowledge of the area that you grew up?
Both. So I did go into the Canton Fairs, and the problem with the Canton Fair is that because the company put themselves into Canton Fairs are generally quite a large company. Because you think about the Canton Fair, it costs about 100 grand to take a booth there.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have that kind of cash to spend into a show like that, you obviously need to, able to bring that kind of revenue back, right? So I know at the start, some of those companies might not be able to deal with me because I'm actually start from scratch.
Startup, yeah.
Yeah, but some of the company I met from day one are working with us now, so which is very interesting. But then based on my local knowledge, I was able to work with a couple of the smaller manufacturers and able to they almost grow with us as well,
In terms of timelines, were you ahead of your time when you were starting Fervor Hue, or was there already an industry of people already purchasing from China and flying to China and flying to those fairs?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, there are people, there are some larger players. I mean, if you look at the IKEA, Woody's, and some of the large furniture stores, and they're gone there.
They're doing it for years.
They're doing it for years, right? Yeah. But I suppose where it was a little bit different. I come from a ground zero, from a scratch. I think I might be a little bit ahead of my time in a way that I suppose I have the local knowledge, able to actually dealing with some of the suppliers that probably you wouldn't have found them through Canton Fairs.
Yes,
able to work with me.
Yes,
so which is great.
Yeah. And in hindsight, when you look back at all of that, did that make it easier for you? The fact that you could hop on a plane and go and talk to these people directly?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, able to speak the local, the language, the lingo, and able to actually not just navigate my way around it very easily.
Yeah.
So
Fervor Hue, I've been in the store in Cork, and it's an absolute credit to you. It's a what I would call an experience store. It's very well laid out. You're clearly very proud of your brand.
Yeah.
How did you choose home furnishings as the item that you were going to sell?
It's something that is self-interest, I suppose. I touched a little bit earlier there, Keith, is myself and my wife did spend quite a bit of time kind of traveling in our 20s. So we spent quite a bit of time in America, Canada, Australia, China. One of those places always kind of grabs us is kind of the home interior stores,
yes.
In any of these countries, because they're all a little bit different. They all have their own kind of quirkiness, it reflects their own culture, and it reflects the personality of the brand as owner, etc. And it's something we kind of jokingly spoke many times saying, look, we love to do something ourselves like that, And then when I came back, I suppose the other example I often use is kind of go, if I couldn't do fashion because I never able to get the size right, So if it's something for your home, if it doesn't work in one room, you can move into a different room. That's my thinking behind it. Probably a little bit too simplistic at the time.
No, well, we have some clients that are in the fashion sector, and it's a world in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not clued in, and if you're not highly experienced in fashion, there's no point in entering the market.
Yeah.
I suppose the negative with going into home furnishings and furniture and accessories is the fact that to stock up is a big investment. So there's advantages and disadvantages, I suppose, to every vertical that you choose.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the other things in the home furnishing industry is that there's a lot of players in there.
Yeah,
there's a highly competitive environment, and you really have to do what you do well and know what you want to do.
Yeah. Not only did you start the business, did you name the business, and you also took the trip to China, but you also design your products. Is there a process for that? that means you really have to stay on top of future trends. Effectively, to go back to fashion design, effectively it's no different. I mean, you have to try and predict when you make that order for that container to come in from China, what people are going to be interested in next year. And you design the products.
That's correct, Keith. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like it's a constant challenging. We're constantly having internal debate about it, as what's going to sell, what's going to go well, what does people want. And the reality is you can only do a good educated guess every time. It's with these things, but I think it's the key thing that I should mention here is the key is that we do have a very strong team. I couldn't do all this on my own, right? We do have people working in the home interior industry over 20 years working with us, and they're part of the team from day one. If I can drop a name there,
absolutely. Yeah.
Jardine will be with us from day one, and she has been a phenomenal asset to our team and to the growth of the company. I mean, like she would have helped me from very day one to actually design a range, how to build a collection, and I suppose the process is no different compared to day one to now. Things might get a little bit easier in a way that we have the volume to able to back it up. Getting more complicated is that we expect more from ourselves, right? Yeah. So the process is still the same. We look at it, the trend for next year, and we're looking at the color range we want to build, and then we go into looking at the fabrics, the collections, what we want to get out of it, and then we buy those fabrics and then we manufacture our own product. So same thing.
We'll speak about volume in 1 second. Let's just take a quick break, Stephen, and we'll listen to our sponsors for 1 second. Rewind.io is the leading backup solution for your Shopify store. Did you know that there's no way of recovering lost data? If your store is gaining traction, app developers or multiple staff may enter your store, and there's absolutely no way of fixing human error. Rewind.io allows you to rewind your store back to its original state, so you can reduce your business risk immediately with the Rewind app. It's so easy and is the cheapest and best insurance policy you'll ever need for your Shopify store. Get your first month for free by simply replying to your first email from Rewind and mention this podcast. Now, regular listeners will know I love Klaviyo. It's the single biggest revenue generator I've ever seen across hundreds and hundreds of Shopify stores I've been in. Klaviyo's data-driven marketing automation platform is sophisticated enough to power those legendary campaigns from the big brands you admire, but they make it simple, they make it easy, and they make it fast. To get started with a free trial of Klaviyo, visit klaviyo.com/milkbottle. That's klaviyo.com/milkbottle. In terms of volume, Stephen, you are supplying nearly 100 stores nationwide with your product. So the trade store that we constructed as part of the Virgin Media Back in Business campaign, it obviously is critical to that. Did you foresee that kind of direction? Because I saw a photo that you posted on social media recently where you recently moved into a new warehouse. Yeah. And I'm assuming that the volume of your trade business, if you're supplying that many stores, is the driver of that physical facility expansion. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely, Keith. I mean, like to able to facilitate the growth and to support our partners, right? And not just the wholesale part of it. I suppose the online growth as well, right? Yeah. But we do need the extra facility for us to actually to able to get more product lines. To actually to have enough product there to able to back up our orders, So yeah, absolutely. We moved from to actually thinking back. We from day one, I rented, I suppose, 140-foot a storage unit in one of the public storage facilities in Cork. Yeah. With taking in our first 20-foot container to now is I think it was 120,000 square foot warehouse, and it's a phenomenal.
So well done and congratulations. And when I saw the photo, I was delighted, because we hadn't interacted in a while, because it's a few years since I was down actually in the store, and I remember specifically the actual experience in the store. Yeah. And now that you mentioned Geraldine's name, it was probably Geraldine that I met in the store. But that the expansion like that also brings challenges, because you have to tie cash up in stock. Yeah. You probably have security for your stock, and then you probably have warehouse staff. So have you been able to manage that in the last 2 years, that kind of rapid expansion, or has it been a challenge?
Oh yeah, it's been a huge challenge. I mean, it's huge because like it's our product is very different. Our product is, you're talking about home interior product, right? It's bulky. It's a big product. You're talking about a chair, you're talking about a table, you're talking about like, 4 cushions. Even like cushions cover might be small, but you put them together, they're quite big, right? And I think one of the heaviest, you wouldn't believe the one of the heaviest item we have to manually handle is pillows. It's a cushion inserts, right? Because in each bag, there is about 50 cushion pillows and they all weigh 450 grams. So they are like, you're talking about you're dragging around 30 kilo bags, and then when I tell people that's a bag of pillows, and they wouldn't believe it, right? It's hugely challenging. I think one of the things I learned over time is I couldn't do everything on my own. Like as a company, we couldn't do everything on our own, right? We need to find people that is able to partner with us. And that's what we have done. And for each challenge I had, I try to find the best partner I can find, and I work with them. Nobody have a perfect solution for you, and you just have to see what capability they have and what you can, I suppose, live with at that time, and then you work with that.
Yeah. So if the supplier has the same attitude, you'll have those partners for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a good business principle to apply early on in the day, because both people will reap rewards, for the long term.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've Shopify POS in store.
Mm-hmm.
That works well. You're happy with it?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's for the first 3 years. I don't know how I live without it, actually, to be honest with you, Keith, right? For the first 3 years, I didn't, right? We have a different POS system, right? And it was a bit of a disaster when the pandemic hit, right? Because we always able to keep the wholesale part of it separate anyway, right? But it's the online bit and the retail bit is the challenging. And so we had a different system. And then when the pandemic hit, obviously there wasn't much happening through the retail because everything was closed. But our online has taken off, right? But all our inventory are recorded through retail. And it did not been, with
wasn't
online,
joined.
Yeah, it wasn't joined. Online sales, we just do a manually once a month reconciliation, right? Yeah. But that just become a nightmare when the volume is going up through online. So at that stage, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to put in the Shopify POS, and I'm so glad I did it because now everything syncs.
Yeah. So for our listeners, in case they don't know, Stephen, I suppose I'll just explain that the Shopify POS app enables you to download Shopify POS to an iPad or a phone, and you can sit it on top of a till system, and it acts as a retail point of sale. And then if you have the online store channel in your account, along with POS, all of the stock that's being sold out of your warehouse is, if there's a sale online, comes out of the same inventory as the sale in store. So you can't oversell. So it protects the business. It's very simple as well. Yeah, nearly too simple. We've discussed its potential in restaurants and a number of other verticals, and it's not ideal for certain businesses. But if your point of sale requirement is fairly simple, just to make a sale, and to eat out of your inventory, well then it's a wonderful product and exceptionally cheap as well. So it's good to see that you're enjoying that. The trade store as well is online on Shopify. A question in relation to trade: is it all Ireland, or are you exporting in any way to any other country?
We work with quite a lot of clients in the Northern Ireland. Yeah, so at the moment we kind of base ourselves in the island of Ireland. Just the different challenges that we have. I mean, different supply chain is a issue. And I suppose that we're kind of growing from a 9 wholesale client to just probably under 100 at the moment, right? So it's quite a large jump. So what we try to do is, which we want to mine that. We want to get that right.
Protect it, yeah.
Yeah, protect it, get that right. And then what we do is then in the medium to long term, we're looking at maybe overseas then.
Yeah, and most of the clients that we would work with, Stephen, they've all switched off. Sorry, the majority of them have switched off UK shipping.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
You're referring to Brexit and those challenges, as well as the obvious other, the C word, which we won't mention today. So, and I suppose the beauty about Shopify's the online store functionality is, of course, that you can ship wherever you want.
Yeah.
But the challenge for you, of course, is international shipping. Furniture and accessories is bulky.
Yep.
And it's expensive. And I notice we have a number of clients that are shipping bulky items, and I've observed over the last while that when somebody purchases something online which is bulky and it's local delivery, people are quite happy to pay for shipping. But international customers, are very skeptical about paying a high price for shipping. That's just a trend I've noticed lately. So you have a challenge there if you're going to ship to multiple countries, because your shipping system and functionality on your website would have to be very, very detailed, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it is. It's definitely a challenge. I mean, like, we're kind of shipping stuff to countries that we would never ship before. You know what I mean? During the pandemic, I mean, we got an online order. No, this is retail orders. I mean, we got 8 chairs order from Taiwan.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and we have to find how we're going to ship.
How are you going to get that there?
The 8 chairs to Taiwan. Yeah. And then we, I think about 2 weeks ago, we got an order of 22 chairs to Belgium. So we have to figure out how we're going to do that, you know? So this is the thing from what I said earlier, Keith. It's about finding out what your partners kind of achieve. And are able to work with them. Now, I have any logistic partners, account manager on speed dial. It literally, if I have a problem, I ring them. Yeah. And then they come back to me with some sort of solution anyway.
Well, at the end of the day, if you get an order from Taiwan or Belgium, there's no point in over-engineering your systems at the start when you start your business. Just deal with it when it arrives. Logistics is a fascinating industry. There is generally, within the logistics industry, there's generally somebody with a solution for every problem. That's what I notice. I tell an interesting story. We had a client down in Westmeath many years ago when we started Milk Bottle, and he was selling second-hand airplanes.
Yeah.
But the other side of the business, he was selling second-hand airplane parts. So around 2008, 2009, when the world recession hit, he's a pilot, and he was stripping, 4-seater Cessnas, the kind of popular plane amongst the wealthy with private licenses. And a lot of them were mothballed after when the recession hit, and he began to strip them and take them apart and take photos and sell the pieces online, and it was a legitimate business. Similar to the way eBay is very well known for being the home of second-hand car parts,
Yeah.
And the first order that he got on his Shopify store was for the wing of a Cessna to somewhere in South America. I think it could be Mexico. And he rang up DHL, and he drove to an area in Dublin Airport into DHL, and they have this heavy or large goods handling area or unit within their facility. Yeah. And he just drove in with the wing, and they wrapped it up and they shipped it. Now, if you were getting into that business of selling second-hand airplanes, if somebody said to you, well, how are you going to ship if somebody orders a wing? It would nearly stop you from actually going into the business. But no, so you just never know what's around the corner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's a lot of time is just because you haven't seen it, you haven't done it, it doesn't mean other people haven't done it already. By talking to them, I remember when we started just getting volume with the wholesale business, because what we used to do is we ship everything through on post. We had a very large account with on post, and then when we start getting this huge volume, and then on post have to bring an Arctic to our warehouse to actually take all the parcels
away. That's good, Stephen. That's a good complaint, by the way.
No, it's absolutely good, right? But the problem was I'm starting getting phone calls because I'm causing disruption in their supply system.
Yeah.
And they were saying we only have one Arctic go from Cork to Dublin every night. I mean, you're taking that. I mean, so you're causing problem for us, right? And then I was kind of go okay, what do we do? And then we're just talking to people, talking to one of the guys in the warehouse. They're just saying Steve, why don't you ship stuff on pallets? And I was like, I just never thought of it.
Yeah.
And then from there on, we've just started using pallets and just making things a lot easier. You use less packaging. You make things easier, less manual labor.
And does that mean then that the pallet can just be lifted into the back of an unpost van? Is that?
No. You're like a pallet. I don't think unpost do pallets. You have a different supply partner lifting in pallets.
Okay.
But so for like an order was shipped out yesterday for a wholesale client. Now his order is about 8 pallets.
Yeah.
But then 8 pallets could be like 2 unpost vans.
Yes.
And I have to arrange 2 vans to come in to collect it.
Yeah.
And it's going to take us about 3 days to pack all that stuff. With 8 pallets, we just put these things on a pallet, wrap it. I mean, like one guy, half a day did all that.
Yeah.
So it's just because I don't know the answers. I mean, I don't know how to do it. Somebody has to tell me.
Absolutely. And when it comes to logistics, that's definitely the case.
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
the case. Just, I suppose, to finish on the logistics, we had a client one time down in Mullingar and Westmeath, and their business scaled to thousands of orders a week, and they had the same challenge with OnPost. And they did a deal with one of the larger US carriers, and they send a 40-foot Arctic down every morning, and they leave the trailer there.
Yeah.
They fill the trailer, and then they go back to Dublin Airport every night, and then all of the items get overnighted through DHL's network worldwide.
Okay.
So not only did they fix the problem of too much volume, but they actually reduced the delivery time significantly because DHL recognised that, this is an account that we should probably give attention to.
Yeah.
So it worked out in the end. Give me one thing that you love about Shopify.
One thing I love about Shopify, the flexibility of it. It's absolutely brilliant in a way that I'm able to have an overview and do changes on my phone. Doesn't matter where I am.
Yeah.
I could be in China. I could be in, Monaghan. I could be in Cork,
Yeah.
So just the flexibility of it. Love it.
So that's the mobile app you're referring to?
Yeah.
The Shopify mobile app?
Yeah.
What is your favourite Shopify app?
At the moment, I have to say Looks.
Aha, the reviews app.
Yes, I love it. Just because I think the ability for a customer to post a picture up and it kind of, you kind of promote your customer to do that. And then we actually really celebrate that on our website. And we created separate pages for happy customers.
Yes.
And they're able to share their pictures, how they use our product in their home. It's brilliant. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. We use it quite a lot. In the early days of the podcast, I interviewed Yoni, who's the owner of Lukes.io. So we'll place a link in the show notes. So for our listeners, in case they're not aware, so Lukes.io is a reviews app that will send out a review to the client a number of days after the order is fulfilled and the client receives it. And then there's an incentive on the email for the customer to leave a photo.
Yeah.
And of course, when all of those photos are brought into the store, and as you say, a separate section for happy customers is created. It also creates what we call Google Gold, because all of those reviews on your site with the photo are actually it's unique content.
Yeah.
So when Google is indexing the site, it's taken as it helps with your ultimate SEO ranking.
SEO
This is great content.
We actually push it a bit further. We actually create a separate QR code for the happy customer page, and I place that around in our retail store. And so people come in and they can use their phone, scan the QR code. Like we kind of highlight, I said, scan this to see this product in other people's home.
Very good.
So that kind of it just you're able to link the online experience to retail. Which is really cool.
That's very clever. Very clever. Is there anything you don't like about Shopify?
Don't like Shopify. You know what? One thing actually bothers me a little bit with Shopify is the reporting. I felt the reporting is a little bit too simple. I think the reporting. Now I know you have to kind of pay to get the next grade, and next grade you open up a bit more, etc. But I think those reporting should be given from day one in order for people to make good decisions or allow them to grow bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, that's we've had that before. A lot of people export the reports and then they have templates built in Excel and they paste them in.
Yeah.
And look, I think that's the problem with software as a service in general. It's always depending on what plan you're on, there's always the next plan that has the feature maybe that you might like.
Exactly.
Look, I've really enjoyed this conversation and I could talk to you all day. Before we go, what is the future do you see for your business?
The future for our business, building a strong brand. And that's what we want. And, it's never about one retail store, one online store. It's about building a brand that we're proud of, and then not just supplying nationally and actually expand our brand internationally, And so that's kind of the future. And there's a roadmap to achieve that. It's like, we can only take one bite at a time,
Yeah. Well, Stephen, congratulations on the competition, being involved in the Virgin Media Backing Business Competition. It was an absolute pleasure to work for you and work with you. Next time we're down in Cork, we'll say hello.
Absolutely. I'll bring you for tea then.
Well, is that sausage and bacon, or is that...
some dim sums maybe,
pure Chinese green tea. I'll take you up on that offer.
Yeah, okay? Absolutely. We're more than welcome.
Thank you so much for your time. Really, really enjoyed the time.
Yeah, appreciate that, tea. Not a bother.
Thanks for listening. All of our episodes are available on Spotify, iTunes and Google Podcasts. A special note of appreciation goes to our sponsors, Rewind.io, the leading backup solution for Shopify store owners. Get your first month of Rewind for free by simply responding to any welcome email once you sign up for your free trial on Rewind.io. And of course to the email platform Klaviyo, which helps Shopify brands easily create personalized multi-channel marketing campaigns using your most powerful asset, your customer data. To get started with a free trial of Klaviyo, visit klaviyo.com/milkbottle. That's KLAVIYO.com/milkbottle. If you're a Shopify user with an exciting story to tell, reach out to the team on podcast@milkbottlelabs.com. Until the next time, take care.